this meeting of the Carroll County Police Accountability Board to order. And we have 4 members here, Mr. Miller, Mr. Willett, Ms. Knight, and myself. And we have a visiting member from the ACC, Mr. Bayard, here. So for purposes of quorum, we have met our quorum responsibilities. I'm going to do a little housekeeping first. So looking at the all the members received a copy of the minutes from the last meeting from June 5th. Are there any changes, corrections, modifications that anyone sees to any of those that we need to address? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Minutes are approved. Actually, I didn't vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, forgot that salient detail. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping just from the chair here. I know we don't have anybody with us from the Sheriff's Department this morning. This glasses on and off thing drives me nuts. But, okay, so I did receive information from Lieutenant Devilbiss that he is coordinating a crisis intervention training for law enforcement with Westminster City and the Carroll County Health Department. Their training session is October 16th through the 20th, and they have invited the PAB and the ACC, and I've passed this along to our membership as well, to participate in the last day, which is Friday, October 20th, in the role-playing, which is approximately 9 to noon that day. So I have forwarded that to the members. I will be joining in because I like nothing better than a little role play. So that'll be fun. And interesting. And we can see kind of what their training stuff is doing. Okay. The other information I have, which is really not consequential necessarily for us because we have our civilian trial board member, but the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correction Services is opening up additional training slots for that trial board civilian members. They're scheduled for October of this year and then some dates next year. So Tim, I don't know if we want to just kind of keep a rolling log of those dates because, you know, there's going to be ebb and flow as these boards and that position changes.
Right.
Now, trial board, does trial board have any end date to the appointment? I can't remember. I don't remember there being one.
I don't believe there is.
All right, so hopefully Michael Fry will hang with us for a while.
Yeah.
But worth noting just so that we've got maybe some folks in the pipeline. And is there any, and this is a question that I'm going to ask you off the cuff, but like if someone from the Police Accountability Board, their term was up, could they then rotate into a position like the trial board position? I don't think there's any negative feedback on that, but so just something to think about. If you find that you love this stuff and you want to take that on. Okay. Additional housekeeping. I received a citizen complaint. Mr. Burks forwarded it to me from our website. So that was on Friday, August 25th, and it was a Sheriff's Department complaint, so I forwarded that on to the Sheriff's Department, and I assume that they will be following up with investigation. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Okay, what else? What are my other notes? I also had a conversation with Lieutenant Jeff Ferreira from Maryland State Police. He was checking into trial board situations regarding Maryland State Police, local ones. So I told him if he has a matter that necessitates a trial board to communicate with county attorney's office, because that was really our gateway. I said, we have a citizen appointee for Carroll County, because he was working on something, I can't remember whether it was Carroll or another jurisdiction, where he was arranging for the administrative judge to be present. So I said, communicate with Tim Burke's office, because I know that you have been for the ones that we've had so far, limited as they may be, your office has made those arrangements. So I just wanted to make sure that he knew that was the communication conduit. Okay. I'm going to give my quick ACC update from our last meeting. We thought we were having a Westminster City matter, but it got bumped because of other crises at the moment on that day. So we will be having an ACC matter originated from the Westminster City Police at our next meeting. Our next meeting is on next Wednesday, the 20th at 9 o'clock. The next PAB meeting will be Monday, December 4th at 10 o'clock. We'll put those in the minutes too, so everybody's got them. Okay, I think that's it for me in general housekeeping. So I'm going to shift, turn it over to Ms. Knight, who has prepared. Just so law enforcement knows, we're going to try and come up with a PAB generated, basically a spreadsheet. Kind of, we love your spreadsheets that you're giving us so that we know what's going on with Westminster City. So kind of along that lines, very basic information, no identifying details. But it's a way for the PAB to track those cases that come before the ACC and determine what was the outcome. So we've got a basic format, the date the complaint was received, the primary complaint, very basic details, like, officer speeding or officer pulled over too quickly, or, whatever the citizen complaint is. A list of who the investigating agency is, whether it's sheriff's department or municipal departments, whether that investigation is complete or incomplete, and if it's completed, when it was handed over to the ACC, and what the ACC disposition is. Lisa's got some other stuff in here, but I think that from a flow standpoint, I want to focus on what the ACC disposition perspective is, and then that disposition date and what the outcome was, whether the discipline was accepted or whether they went to a trial board. So very basic details, just so that we have a tracking device so citizens can see what happened, what happened at the ACC. So once we get that kind of in a formalized format, we'll distribute it out to law enforcement. But I'll turn it over to Lisa to kind of talk through any other details that I failed to touch on, and what you're...
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I think some of the members began to become a bit concerned about the way that the information was being minuted, in terms of it wasn't very organized, and now, thankfully, Carroll County has a pretty low number, so probably would be quite manageable through there. We don't really need a very complex spreadsheet to track the few complaints that we do get, but with that said, it is a nice tool that we think may be an opportunity, and I guess we need to talk to Mr. Burke about this, about making it transparent on the website as well. So Calvert County do. I based the structure on, for the most part, on Calvert County's, and it just really just gives that level of transparency to the community on where we are with this. I've kept it extremely brief in terms. There is no identifying information. Everything's very confidential, but it really just shows the flow of the process. The other thing I've done is on page 2, for anybody who we'll get to it in terms of showing you guys when we get it in a final form in between us. But what I've done as a page 2 is I've put drop-down menus so that we can't just put anything in there. We have to have a very set amount of data that will go in. So sustained, not sustained, exonerated, language that is very consistent with just the flow and the information, that we're sort of restricting the information that goes on it to keep a little bit of control and confidentiality to the process. So that was sort of the spirit of how I drafted it. It's still in draft form. I think since I don't have a legal background, there may be some terminology, some data that we're going to be reviewing and tweaking, and then we'll put it out for your review hopefully in the coming weeks, so that we can get it finalized by the end of the year.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments on that?
Morning.
All right. Good morning.
My apologies for being late.
No worries. No worries. We're just going through administrative stuff here, so we're good. All right. And then once we get a more formalized version of this, we can adopt it specifically, like at our next December meeting. But, yeah, thank you very much for putting that together.
And there'll be plenty of room on the website for it. We can post it
Good,
on our.
okay, great, great, yeah. Hopefully, it's not gonna have that many lines in it, so, yeah, the way things are going. Okay, so I have taken care of my administrative stuff. I'm gonna turn it over to the PAB board. If anyone has something that they want to bring up, discuss that's new, feel free. I know Jeremy mentioned something to me that he just wanted to kind of let us know about, but if anyone else has anything, feel free to jump in, see if anything. All right, awesome.
I wanted to extend, I guess, an invitation. Carroll County Citizens for Racial Equity is a kind of a coalition in the county. It's made up of CCYSB, HSP, McDaniel College, Carroll Community College, lots of these groups. And they do an annual conference each year, which exists really to bridge the gap between community and issues that the community is facing. And so it was brought up in a recent meeting about police relations with the community, which was viewed as very positive. So thank you for that, first off. And so the discussion went to, well, let's not wait until there's an issue. Let's continue to be proactive in this and continue to build bridges together. And so there was an invitation I would like to extend to be a part of that annual conference coming up. There'll be some breakout sessions, keynote speakers, but to have law enforcement a part of this annual conference so that community members and people from these bureaus that are attending may have face-to-face interaction with law enforcement. So I wanted to extend that to you and see if that would be favorable on your side.
Sure, absolutely. Do you have the dates for it yet?
I don't yet. Spring of 2024 is when they're looking to do that, and most likely held at Carroll Community College. One-day conference.
Okay.
Okay.
And could you repeat the name of the organization?
Yes. Carroll Citizens for Racial Equity, CCRE.
That's okay.
So probably at a future meeting, you'll give us the official
Absolutely.
Yeah.
information.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Where did you say that will be held?
Right now, we're looking at Carroll Community College. That's where this past year's was, and should be for 2024 as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, keep us updated.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to law enforcement agencies now to give us any updates, any questions, any concerns that you've got cooking in your departments, let us know. And Chief Ledwell, we got your handout, so thank you for that. So we have to start and go across.
Just to let you know, I touched base with Sheriff DeWeese. It was an oversight. He's going to have somebody here in 2 minutes, he said.
Oh, okay, all right.
We've had a busy summer. Our
Yeah.
biggest issue within the police department is staffing.
Right,
So a year ago, ironically, we were fully staffed, and this year we've gotten as low as 13 below our authorized, which when you have a total of 45, 13
Right.
is significant. So we've been struggling to recruit, retain, figure out how to, because there's just an applicant shortage period across the board, and it seems like the larger agencies are luring away employees from the smaller ones. So that's been our biggest challenge as an agency. Summer is obviously our biggest time of year
Right.
as far as calls for service, things of that nature. We had a trial board scheduled for this summer. Fortunately, it was resolved just prior to the trial board, so we got to go through the process of preparing for it with County Attorney Mr. Burke and with you and others, seeing it all like come together.
right,
I think now that we've done that once, hopefully we won't have to do it again, but
right, but it makes it
but
easier.
now we know the process, because there was a lot of stress on me to meet timelines and try to make, because, you know, anytime you have a personnel issue, you want to resolve it as soon as possible. And, you know, you don't want an employee to be under stress for, you know, an indefinite period of time with an unknown outcome to the issue. So I think now that we've got the process down moving forward, hopefully we won't have any, but at least now I think it'll go a little quicker than it had before.
That's good to hear.
As far as the summary that I provided to you, we had 4 uses of force in this last quarter. If you have any questions about what I provided, I'm happy to answer it. What I did was just gave you our chronological number on the left to show you year-to-date how many we've had. What the type of force was is in the next column. Then the type of incident that the officers were responding to, and then what our determination was. We do a review. Anytime we have a use of force, the officer all the involved officers fill out individual, we call them use of force notifications. It's more of a checkbox. You go through and, the justification for the force, the type of force, how did we respond, what did the supervisors do? That gets done, and then it goes up through the chain of command. The supervisor does a use of force investigation. Almost all the time, they're going to be out on the scene doing that for us, and then they provide us with the results of that. That gets reviewed all the way up through me, and then we make a determination whether it was in policy or not in policy. If it's not in policy, it could be considered either inappropriate or excessive. Obviously, excessive being the worst of the 2 options.
Right.
The 4 that we had, we found were within policy, or they were significant, and our officers, I think, in general, do an exceptional job of, number one, they understand de-escalation. We parse out de-escalation into 3 categories: pre-incident, during the incident, and then post-incident. So pre-incident would be critical thinking, and that's something that I think we're really trying to teach the officers. Okay, I'll give you an example. I was sitting at my desk and we got a call, man with a gun. So you can hear, even the dispatch is kind of keyed up when something like that goes out, and then you hear the sirens kick on and you can hear it in the officer's voice. So we try to instill calmness in our response, and the way we do that is I solicit details from dispatch, and in the case we had, there wasn't a confrontation in this particular incident. It was somebody in a backyard, turned out to be an airsoft pistol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the more we do that, we use time, distance, and shielding to try to prevent a confrontation. So that might be an example of a pre-incident de-escalation. Obviously, on scene, we try to use time, distance, and shielding, verbal techniques. We train in something called verbal judo, which is a particular style of de-escalation, verbal de-escalation, on scene, to try to do what we can to prevent a physical use of force, if at all possible. And then a post-incident de-escalation would be something that didn't occur in, like, the George Floyd incident, where you want to immediately put somebody in a rescue position on their side as opposed to being prone or supine. You don't want to have pressure on somebody beyond any time that you absolutely need to physically have pressure on somebody. And you want to summons for medical attention and aid and do what you're trained to do. So those are all things post-incident that we would consider de-escalation. And I think our officers have learned that, those 3 facets of de-escalation, and I think are demonstrating an exceptional amount of patience as per what the situation dictates. So that's kind of a summary of our uses of force for the quarter, unless you have any questions for that.
No.
Okay.
Not for me. Nobody else.
The ADS review, that's just something that we do internally. I brought it over. We did it in Frederick City. That's an administrative review of anytime we arrest somebody and don't take them down to central booking, or they go to central booking and they get refused, which happens quite a bit. It's usually because of intoxication, drug use, or a medical issue. And so they get vetted at central booking, and if one of those 3 things is occurring, we have to take them to the hospital instead. And sometimes, if it's a very serious charge, we will sit in security at the hospital for their stay,
Right.
and then take them back down to central booking. Majority of times, the charge is not as serious, so what we end up doing is releasing them and then going and applying for a charging document through the district court commissioner. And they'll either issue an arrest warrant or a criminal summons as a result.
Okay.
So that's what you'll see on some of these. The other ones, when our officers call for a police canine to do a scan of a vehicle, if the canine alerts, that's considered probable cause to search the vehicle. It's also considered probable cause to arrest and search the driver or the person who's in control of the vehicle. And sometimes we find amounts of drugs that we're not going to charge somebody with. That's the most typical situation that you'll see in here. It's either they'll find residual. The dogs have a nose that can smell, I don't even know how many times more
Than any of us.
than a person can. And they detect the residual odor, they detect the small amounts in the vehicle. So we'll do the search. If there's a driver or owner there, we'll arrest and search the driver. And then if the officer might have a discretionary decision to release the individual without taking them to central booking, because we're not going to charge somebody with something that
Right.
is not going to have any impact. It's usually paraphernalia or residual amounts. Occasionally, we don't find anything on those searches. Doesn't mean the dog was wrong by any means. If you think about, and my understanding with the canine programs is that, you know, if I possess a illegal drug and I touch the door handle and I open it, I get in the car, maybe I'm in there, maybe I'm smoking it in there and it's gone because I used it up, the dog's still going to smell that
Right.
and alert to it. So there are occasions where we get a positive canine alert and they don't find anything, or people are good at hiding them. They got hiding spots up in the car, and some individuals even have hidden compartments in vehicles, or they swallow it, they crush it, they secrete it on their person in places we're just not going to look in a field search. If you can imagine what that might be. So, you know, there are times where we don't recover the drugs, so we'll do a search and release. So anytime we do that, we'll do the ADS review.
Okay.
We had one stop and frisk. We got a call for an armed individual. I can't remember the particular circumstances, but the officers did a pat down. We did not find a weapon on him and handled the call the rest of the way through. So those are our ADS reviews for this last quarter. If you guys had any questions for me.
What's ADS stand for?
It's an acronym for arrest and release, investigative detention is the D, and S is search.
Gotcha.
So any of those things, we do an administrative review. And if we see a pattern with an officer, they might not be doing anything wrong.
Right.
But we might pick up something where we need to have a conversation. And we'll have a conversation and say, hey, you might want to look at, you know, doing this a little differently. So, you know, we want to make sure we don't want to wait till something bad happens before it comes to our attention. So we do this review.
Yeah, I really appreciate the de-escalation on the way to the scene kind of thing that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That's really, I think.
I think that's the most
Yeah.
undertaught aspect at the entry level, that with everything that's going on, you know, not ending up in a jackpot. I think
Right.
that is so important to teach the officers how to critically think in response.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really appreciate that, because I think we all, when you see it in hindsight, you're like, geez, what happened? How did it get? But you don't understand the stress that comes, like you said, when that first call comes in, the stress level's super high. So thanks for thinking of that.
As far as complaints or inquiries, the difference between that and our policy is an inquiry, like there's some of these that were resolved in intake, came out as, you know, somebody might call and say, hey, I saw your officer driving this way, which was a lawful way for them to respond to a call. And once that explanation occurs, then it's resolved. It's not a complaint. We had one complaint that was made against one of our civilian employees, which we handled, that I don't think falls in this
Yeah,
purview.
right.
But I just listed it there because we chronologically, we track all of our complaints, because we want to be able to go back and say, how did we handle them? Or if somebody says, well, you know, you didn't do anything with a complaint 2 years ago, we can go back and we have it all, you know, chronologically listed and how it was resolved. So that would be one of the numbers in there. That's the only reason I put it in there. We currently do, and that would be the 2302, the investigation also. That's a civilian matter. 2303 is an open complaint that we got. It was a racial discrimination complaint for a traffic stop. So that's currently being investigated and
Okay.
will ultimately go before you.
Okay, great.
That's all I
Any
have,
idea
unless
of
there's any
timeline?
questions.
Do you have a timeline on that yet, or no?
I don't think that there's a lot that needs to be done for that
Okay.
particular investigation, so I don't see it as being one that's going to be prolonged.
So maybe October,
I would say that's reasonable.
good enough. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll put you on the spot. Do you have any updates?
Yeah, just briefly.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's been a busy summer for us as well. Mr. Shaw knows that we deal with a lot of town events. And
Yes.
that generates a lot of issues from time to time,
Right.
and it's a big draw on our manpower, but thankfully, they've all gone well so far.
Well, good.
In terms of discipline, the only thing we've had during this quarter is an internal matter involving a
Okay.
pursuit review. A young officer wasn't in compliance with our pursuit policy, so we issued a written reprimand on that. So that
Right.
wouldn't fall within your purview, but
Right,
just wanted to let you
exactly.
know that we handled that appropriately. And it's a young officer, and hopefully he learned from his mistakes.
Yes.
And next time, if there is a next time, he will do a little bit better. The only other issue I wanted to mention is our public portal, and I'm sure you guys have the same issue, is being used for everything but complaints. It's almost like a suggestion box for
Okay.
people to use it to send in all kinds of bizarre questions
Yes.
and issues. But I guess it's good. It's just another means for the public to communicate with us.
Right.
But even though it says for complaints or compliments, but it's a small price to pay, I guess, so.
Yeah, yeah.
But other than that, everything's going well in Sykesville. So.
Good. How's your staffing?
We were doing well. We struggle with recruitment and retention as
Right.
well. But we're putting a new recruit officer in the Sheriff's Office Academy, which begins, I think, next week.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll put us up to 10 sworn officers, which Mr. Shaw knows is the most our town has ever had.
Well, good.
So
Good.
it's
That's
quite
good
an
to hear.
accomplishment, and knock on wood, we can keep people for a while, and that's the big key, is
Right.
not just get them in the door, but
But keep 'em. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
so we're
exactly.
doing well.
All right, good. Good to hear.
Thank you. Any questions for me?
When you receive the suggestions through the portal, what is your procedure for that? Do you respond to everything that you receive?
If they leave an email address, sometimes they'll do it anonymously with no way to contact them, no
Okay.
phone number or email, but if they do give me a way to reach back to them, I always do.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Just to let them know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Of course.
And we also get the same thing.
Do you? Okay.
Sometimes it's like the lights out at the shopping center, or
Okay.
it has nothing to do with the police department
Right.
because the link is on the city website.
Right.
So we'll forward it to the appropriate agency.
Okay.
If it's something that's completely bizarre, because it doesn't even have to do with us, we try to get back to the individual and let them know
Right.
that too.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good.
Is there some way to maybe put another link on there? I mean, like where do you want the people to go when they've got other types of not
There's so many
complaints?
other ways to reach us, through
Yeah.
our Facebook and our website and the phone numbers and all, but
What's the preferred method from online though versus going through the complaint report portal, do you
if you
think?
go through the website, you can get any department and specifically, for
Email
whatever
them.
issue you're dealing with, but a lot of times people just see that, public portal and police department, and you just use it as a
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
a general catch-all to notify us. So, like I said, it's a small price to pay to at least
Right.
be able to communicate with the public.
Right.
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 Yeah, I was just wondering if you put on there, for others, right? Click this link, might help, but.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, something to think about.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would say much the same.
Okay.
Ditto what these guys say. With reference to the various contacts from the public, many times we deal with people don't understand that they're not within the town limits.
Oh, right.
They believe that they're in the zip code, and we get calls all the time wanting to know why we're not doing something that's not in our area. It's actually very common for us also to get calls from New Hampshire and North Carolina. There's Hampsteads there as well. You usually can tell by the accent right off the bat. And you would be surprised how many people want to argue with you that there's a Bob Sunoco in Hampstead, Maryland. There is one in New Hampshire, I know that. As far as staffing goes, I don't think any police department in the country is going to, in all honesty, tell you that they have adequate staff.
Yeah,
They're not having a
right.
problem. It seems to me it's the same issue for all of us, it's just a different name on the door.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Hampstead goes, we're currently in the process of of hiring 3 folks.
Okay.
Um, we're actually
Officers
through the
or
officers,
administrative? Okay.
yes. We're actually through the last interview is today, and then we'll
Okay.
make our selections for people that are going to go through the background process.
Great.
I think it's difficult to put it in perspective, and I've said this to these guys outside of, official meetings and all. I think for the longest time, as a profession, we haven't really had to work for our people. We haven't had to recruit. Now, 10 million years ago, when I started, they would put a notice out, we're hiring, and I sat with 1,500 people for 10 spots.
Right.
So it was easy. We really didn't have to look for people. Even here in Hampstead, and it's been 5 years for me here, my first hiring for 2 people, we had over 100 applications. Within the last 2 years, coming right out of COVID, we posted for 1 person, and we had 12 applications. So things have changed dramatically. I think as a profession, we've done a poor job at selling ourselves. We don't realize, we have other things to do. We don't realize that we're really in sales at the same time. And now we're trying to play catch-up. Because I still think that there's people out there that want to do this job. It's just that we got to work a little bit harder to find them and convince them that this is not only the right place to do it, but for us here in Carroll County, that this is the right type of policing that you want to do. And a conversation I have with all our applicants is, okay, what are you looking to do? If you're looking to come to Hampstead, for instance, and you're going to be one day chief of the homicide unit, well, then you're looking at the wrong place. All right, but if you're comfortable with coming to a place where you're going to wear multiple hats, I tell my people all the time, every police department in the country has certain things that it has to do. It doesn't matter whether you're NYPD or us here at, HPD. The difference is in how you accomplish those goals, right? So if you're in a larger agency, you have one person that wears one hat. If you're in the smaller agency, as you said, you're changing light bulbs and all the other hats that come in between.
Right.
And I think that becomes a little bit more challenging too, finding the right people to come in and are willing to do that. And it's a difficult process. I just think we have to work, a little bit harder, maybe a little bit smarter. And we also got to recognize, especially us guys with gray hair, those of us that have hair. Yeah, at times have changed as well. People are still, there's still good people out there, but we just have to look for them a little differently, I think differently. Yeah.
Just one thing that popped up in my head. I know at one point in time, it's been a number of years since I participated in it, but the VOTEC program here has, or had, sort of a law enforcement conduit program. Do they still?
As far as I know, they
They
do,
do.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
We've gotten interns from them, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that might be one avenue for a little exploration in terms of, and what about the community college? Do they have coursework? Is there coursework available? Okay.
And they do an awards, criminal justice awards annually, and we
Okay.
get to participate. So we
Right.
do interact with the program and the leaders of, the
Okay.
student leaders in the
Okay.
criminal justice program.
Yeah, because if you can get some of those kids jazzed about it, I think that's the key. Yeah, I know from the lawyer standpoint, the state's attorney's office has spearheaded getting the moot trial program up and running in
It's fun.
the county high schools. Yeah, it's very cool, very cool. Anyway, all right, I digress. Chief
Good morning,
Mitchell.
everybody.
Good morning.
Good to see everybody.
Good to see you too.
As everybody up here has talked about, recruitment and retention, we also have the same problem. Unfortunately, we're getting our manpower up to where it should be, but
Okay.
we're not quite there
Not
yet,
quite there.
along with chief of police.
Right.
So we're still,
Right.
all that's still
Still,
being. yeah,
still searching.
It's all
Okay.
still being worked on, but we're moving,
Gotcha.
we're moving forward, so there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
We've been extremely busy over the summer months, extremely, extremely busy. And I'm sure probably some of you have seen the headlines or the newspapers where we've had numerous weapons complaints, unfortunately. I have to give kudos to all our patrol officers that had to handle those complaints. They were all handled in an appropriate, professional manner. No extreme uses of force. Everything was handled the proper way, and that's the way we try to have all our complaints handled. It's a little bit disturbing to me, though, to see as many weapons complaints as we've had in the last 2 months.
So that's a definite uptick for your,
Yes, and I'm hoping that it's just a rash of them, and hopefully we don't have any more for quite a while, because it's not something that we'd like to see. But unfortunately, as I said, they were handled in an appropriate manner. And all the de-escalation techniques and things like that were put into place with some of these complaints, and they worked out well. Our guys handled all the complaints in a professional way that they're trained to do. Right now, we have one internal investigation that's going on. It's not complete yet.
all right,
When it is completed, it will be forwarded to you immediately if need be,
okay,
okay? But that is still in the process of going through the investigation at this point.
gotcha.
So as soon as it's complete and the investigators completed that investigation, I'll contact you,
Okay,
okay?
good enough.
All right, thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you. Now I'll switch over to Sheriff's Department. Good morning.
Good morning.
He must
You
be the
got-
odd man out. He didn't go to the sheriff's office convention.
Right.
That's my
Right.
apologies.
So no worries.
First thing this morning was a 9/11 memorial service that I was in
Right,
attendance at,
right.
representing everyone.
Yes.
And then a last-minute call because apparently,
Where you had to scramble
I
and go.
did, I
Okay.
did. So my apologies. I'm Captain Glenn Day from the Sheriff's Office.
Thanks for
I am
being
the
here.
commander of the Support Operations Division, which is basically criminal investigations,
Okay.
courthouse, and all civil matters.
Gotcha.
So the good chief here was able to prep me with some things that I might want to say before
Okay.
you all, because I did text the colonel, and the colonel reported to me that we did not have anything to submit or add
Okay.
before you all today. However, we do have nine new folks starting.
Oh, great.
So their family night orientation night is this Thursday, the 14th. And then they officially actually start the academy on
Great.
Monday. So that's nine of our
That's
folks.
great.
Plus what other
Right.
agencies we
Right.
have. The agency's still following all procedures and recommendations passed down on with complaints, how we're filing them, how we're forwarding them. I did do a stint for 3 years as our IA investigator.
Okay.
So I've been in my position for a year. 3 years prior to that, I was our internal affairs investigator. We have nothing outstanding going on right now.
Okay,
The only thing we do have looming, I believe, and I don't have an actual physical date, but I know the month of October, we do have a trial board
The trial
scheduled
board,
for
okay.
one of our
Right.
folks. Other than that, I can't speak on any other open internals. Well, not that I can't speak on them, I'm not aware of what
Okay.
internals we have
good.
going on
Well,
at this
thank you.
moment. We did apparently assist, according to the chief. We assisted them setting up a trial board, prepping for a trial board.
Right,
So that's what we did for them. And that's all I can really give you this
Okay.
morning on such late
That's okay.
notice.
Good
Are
job.
there any questions that you all might have
job
of
for
me?
filling in. It's always that
questions?
scramble.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I think part of this process, and I hope this, there was been a lot of trepidation starting this, I think probably from your guys' perspective and certainly from our perspective, at least mine anyway, to get this process. But I think once we get this process set up and people can see that it's working properly, it should help with recruitment, is what I'm hoping. I think everybody's like a little bit saying, wait a minute, I mean, what's going to happen, So I think if we
Right.
can get this set up and people see it functioning properly for a year or two, it should really, I'm hoping it'll help.
Hopefully.
People get some clarity and they'll feel comfortable taking on the jobs again.
Right,
Because I think there
right.
are people that want to do it. It's just a matter of making sure they can feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
doing it for the salary that you can get, So risk-based reward and seeing a fair and open process, I think will really help, is what my hope is for this process.
Anything else? Anything for the good of the order? All right. I have a quick matter that I want to pose to the board, but I think for purposes of this meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Stacy, real quick.
Oh, yes.
Is it appropriate to request, really appreciate Westminster having this in writing?
Right.
Is it appropriate to request that from each
I
department?
think that that's going to have to be a department by department
I don't
decision,
wanna
given
create
their,
more work, but
right,
it's
given their
helpful having it,
staffing
yeah.
situation.
Okay.
So if it works into your lives that you can produce a summary, great. If it doesn't, we totally get it, because we know that you're changing light bulbs and
Right.
directing traffic and investigating major crimes. So, yeah, to the extent that it's possible, if you can, for the next meeting, bring that, great, but if not, we'll do it verbally.
It is super helpful. It might help you guys track stuff over time too, from meeting to meeting.
Right. Right.
Thanks for the,
When you're not flying by the seat of your pants,
right.
which is how I live my life, so I completely understand that.
Do we have a date for the next?
Yeah, the next Police Accountability Board meeting will be Monday, December 4th at 10 o'clock in this room. The next ACC meeting is next week on Wednesday, the 20th. That is next week, right? Or am I a week ahead? What's today? Who am I?
11.
What's my name?
9/11.
Yes, so the next ACC meeting is September 20th. So, and I believe we'll be having our follow-up on the Westminster City matter, but not quite the pending matter. So we'll take them as they come. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And Board, I just want to talk about our spreadsheet.